What's up, everybody? So, been a while since I basically did any NFL type of, you know, review on games or anything like that. Mainly because at this time of the year, you pretty much already know somewhat of like who's in the playoff, where they're slotted, and all the other stuff. To where there's really not any crazy intrigue. Like yes, talking about the game can more talk about specifics in games and stuff like that. But when it gets to a certain point, it's just kind of like, and what am I really talking about here? And I was like, you sort of figuring out who's out in the playoffs at this point. But with that being said, I was like, because it was so bonkers, I did have to just talk about the whole Bengals versus Broncos game. And I swear, I was like, for a game while it does have implications necessarily on the Dolphins, even though we're really kind of done. Tua doesn't seem like he's gonna play. So, but I do enjoy the Bengals. I do like Joe Burrow. That being said, I was like, oh, I want him to beat the Broncos. I was like, I'm not really in favor of the Broncos. I was like, Bo Nix sort of trips me out on like how we sort of talk about quarterback, because it's like he had played fairly well for a rookie quarterback, but also sometimes too that I'm just like, he's also sort of an example where we put a lot on quarterbacks to where I'm just like, and you know what? I'll talk about one of those plays in a little bit later. But this game being all ups and downs, that if you was I was like, I feel like if you had to be a fan of the Bengals, your heart rate had to probably be over here doing like the game, the Plinko game or whatever it is from like the Price is Right, because it just kept on spiking at so many different times. The Bengals won the game. I think they should have won the game, but also if they would have lost it, I would have been like, yeah, you should have lost it. And I know how that sometimes might be weird to say, just because it's like a team wins, a team loses. What do you mean? Like basically, like who, like you, like nobody deserves to win. You go in, you play the game, and you win, and then all this other stuff. But that's not necessarily true. There's like a lot of stuff where it's like you did, like this is in life where you sometimes be like, I did all the right things. How come this wasn't the end result? That's sort of how it was here. And there were several times during this game that I'm like, I was looking at, like, if the Bengals lose, this is why they lose. This is why they lose. Cause like we always sometimes focus like nearly on like the last play or the last penalty or whatever like that. And sometimes it's stuff like early in the game that can decide the game, even though you still got so much more to go. But it just sort of just changed the momentum, it changed the flow, it changed the rhythm of things that can sort of dictate the game or whatever. And so we're just gonna go out the way that it's like, to be honest, I was like, if the Bengals would have took the points, then I think they would have put themselves in the position. I was like Coach hindsight 2020, that they would have put them. But even if you want to go to like, say like go to halftime, that they would have put themselves in a spot that you might not have the momentum for Denver to score those points, because now they're in a different position. When Denver did score their first touchdown, they were really just running the ball down and throwing. Now, granted, I was like the extra amount of points that the Bengals would have got. That would have been 6 with their time of a touchdown. So I was like, that would have been. I was like, so that'd been like 13 points. You would have still been able to run the ball. You get what I'm saying? But you might have put more pressure on them because they're the Bengals. Almost like sort of like the Chiefs. You have to score a point. So that means that maybe you don't run the ball as much or whatever like that. Maybe you're over here trying to throw the ball. Maybe Knicks is more frantic because that's what he sort of does. A lot of times that he makes really, it's like, oh my God, that's a great play. It's really not real. It's like one of those plays like, if that would have been an interception, we'd have been like, you don't do that type of stuff. And he does a lot of those, you shouldn't do that type of stuff plays, but he has gotten away with it at times too. But going back to the Bengals, at least for the beginning of it, there I was like, it's not that I was like, I was fine with them in both situations going for it on fourth down, especially the one where you're basically at the goal line. That's to me is no brainer. Like, I'm not kicking a field goal when I'm within like the 3 yard line, or even a 5 yard line with the weapons and stuff that we got. I was like when they went on it when it was a little bit further back. I was like, I didn't even mind the fourth. I was like going for it on fourth down at the beginning of the game because it's like over here, like, no, we need to win this game. We're over here showing that we're willing to take this risk because guess what? We got to live and die by this stuff. Cool. I have a problem with the play selection that they did. Like the first one where I was like, they ran it back to back, and I was like, that was frustrating just because it's like, I don't mind a run. I just don't like when I see them do the run. Like I get it on third down that you're over here like, oh, they're not expecting us to run, they're expecting us to pass. Let's run it. Catch them off guard. All right, cool. Then the second one, well, basically Jamar Chase in the backfield behind Brown, and it's like, oh, they ain't gonna expect this again. I was like, yeah, but I was like, this one's easy to sort of cover because it's like you still got Jamar Chase, even though he's in the backfield, he's covered by basically a DB. So that means everybody's pinched in, ready to go. And I was like, Brown's not that type of back. Your line hasn't been getting that type of push. To me, I'm like, it's not the same thing. And also, too, with both drives, you have been killing them passing. And as you've seen, like in the second half of the game, they basically was like, screw this, we're just going to pass it. That was like you were killing them with the pass so much that I'm just like, yo, you got these receivers. I was like Gesicki going off, former Dolphin. I was like Higgins going off. I was like Chase wasn't going off, but you always know there's a potential for that. I was like Sample called a couple passes. I was like Brown's a good receiver. I'm just saying like you could have did enough formation where I was like you could have got something with that down. I was like, to be honest, I would have actually rather than like, and you've seen it later on where he sort of pitched it to Khalil Herbert. And then, like, Khalil Herbert was able to either use his speed to get to the outside or he was able to put a foot in the ground and be able to go upfield. I would have rather them try to do that with Jamar Chase and do that and be like, all right, Jamar Chase, you're really great after the run. Let's see if you get this 1 yard after over here. I think it would have worked out perfectly then going up the middle. That just hasn't been a strong suit. Plus, Denver had been stout up front, particularly in the middle this whole time. I mean, and I know it was at the beginning of the game, but I was like, they got some really thick ass dudes in there, just stuff to run, and that's what they did pretty much the whole game. I was like, they stayed committed to the run, so I will give them the Bengals that, but they weren't able to run. They didn't, and I think also sometimes they didn't really do enough outside stretches or in zone that way to really for the defense that was coming. Like they were coming all night as well too. So with that being said, I think they really did let Denver stay in this game early on at the beginning. And I was like, considering the fact, I think that the defense for the Bengals actually played fairly well. Because I was like, it won't look at it if you just look at the box score. And if you already know the sort of like the how they've been playing this season, what they've been like, sorry this whole season. But I was like, they came up with stops and stuff like that. And to be honest, really outside of I was like, yeah, they were getting the ball ran down them for a while, but then after a while they was able to stop it a little bit later on in the game. But outside of the Mims play, to where it was that ridiculous deep ball that Bo Nix threw, I will say that all of I was like Cortland Sutton that one, but that was just a great matchup. I was like, that's basically your top receiver just over here, just DB. I was like, just going over a dude and catching the ball, like how T Higgins sort of did his as well too. But I was like, so that's why I said I was like, they was able to go down the field, and I was like, that was a great play. That one crazy busted play, I was like, I wouldn't even say a busted play. I was like, Mims was just faster than everybody else. That other touchdown, that was just great by Mims. I was like, I was like, hey, you need a little bit of luck, but that's with it. But I was like, that was a great play by Mims. But the fact that it was just like, there were so many times where it was just like, oh man, the Bengals need to score here. But you didn't really have any, you didn't have any thought or worry that they're not going to score or whatever. Even though defense for Denver was rushing and humming at Burrow the whole night, you still didn't really, I didn't think that Higgins really made a football move for that to be a fumble, because I was like, I didn't think he was able to really turn up field enough, because it felt like 1-2 punch out more so than it was like 1-2 as he was sort of turning to me. But hey, I ain't gotta make these decisions. T. Higgins had a really great game, which sort of sucks in the way of thinking that this is probably his last game. And I think the reason is I think if Jamar Chase wasn't asking for a new contract, I think maybe there might be a chance for Higgins to come back. But I think that I was like, while I do understand Chase wanting his contract and then after this year he gonna get it, I do think that did put things in a situation because you asking for a new contract and your boy Higgins asking for a contract. And while yes, we could easily say they have the money, salary cap be damn kind of thing or whatever, that does sort of mess up the fact that your boy is like, hey, I gotta get my money. Sorry that you need to get your money when he had a legit last year of his contract versus you that don't have a last year of your contract. I was like, that does sort of put them in the bond where they're like, all right, cool, we'll pay you Chase, bump you Higgins, and then I was like, listen, is it his fault? No, but is it also sort of like bad timing of his fault? Sort of. I was like, everybody get their money, but I'm just telling you how some of these things go at the same time. Anyway, Higgins went off, and I was like, possibly his last home game. Um, but it was a really great game. I was like when I thought that I was like the Bengals are in trouble. It was before the missed field goal. It wasn't even the Higgins fumble. And I mean, I know they got the interception right back after that, but I still thought, I was like, even if the Broncos score, I was like, the Bengals will score back. And I was like, the Bengals defense have been playing decent enough to where it's like I was like, what? Yes, I know they didn't end up like slowing them down. They nobody kicked the field goal, but at the same time, there still might be a good amount of time. Then once it got to that 2 minutes, that's where it was different. Once that field goal missed, I was like, and the thing is, I knew people were gonna miss the field goal. Like in my head, it was there, but that's just because I would just like know like, oh, there's a chance that they could miss it. It was when they showed Bo Nix on the side, and he was just like this, and then he was sort of like, I was like, he didn't put his hand together, but you could tell he was praying, and I was like, the way that shot is edited in a way where it's like you just happen to get on. I was like, yes, I understand you're over here scanning the sideline, and Bo Nix, the quarterback, is going to get on him. But the fact that we got on him and he just happened to be praying at that moment, I was like, that's too weird. That sounds like some little divine intervention type stuff. And then guess what? That's what it was. He doinked it and whatnot. Now the Broncos have the chance to go ahead and score, and guess what? The defense hold them in the third down. And once again, we go to Trey Henderson, and they show him doing like this to the sky, and I was like, oh, they gonna stop him because somehow, some way, we got on one of the defensive best players, and he's praying at the same time. That just seemed like some weird scripted divine intervention stuff that I was like, they're gonna get it. Guess what? They did. Bo Nix type stuff. Now, I will say that Joe Burrow, I think like he's not gonna win MVP because his team doesn't have the record. But to be honest, I was like, if you ask me like who, like if all things considered, that say they had 10 wins or whatever like that, I say he would win the MVP. Lamar not gonna get it because I was like, it'd be the voter fatigue stuff, like what Giannis got and stuff like that, where they're not gonna give it to him. Josh Allen is the one that's going to get it, but I think if you were telling me Joe Allen or Burrow, I was like, give me Burrow with the whole thing. I was like, yes, he had a toolbox of weapons to use with that I think really does help him out a lot as well. But I was like, this would have been one of those circumstances where it's like it'd be between them two, because I was like, even though Josh Allen don't have the weapons, and that's why he's gonna win it by the narrative. It's sort of weird that it's like also the narrative with the Bengals that they were like basically dead in the water, or what they were like 1-5 or something like that at some point, and for them to march all the way back. That I'm like, that should be the narrative that you also need. That it's like Joe Burrow and his offense basically got them into the playoffs if they get there. But Joe Burrow, from the way he was able to run, maneuver, even though he was getting sacked, I was like the line, even though they were giving up sacks and they was getting the Burrow, considering the fact that the Broncos were blitzing a lot, they was able to hold up quite a bit. Um, and like it was just mad. And the thing is that those dudes was catching the ball. Gesicki was catching the ball with his hand. Higgins was catching the ball. Like there wasn't too. There's not none of them body throws for a lot of them dudes. Those dudes are catching contested passes. Um, I know everybody. I heard everybody they were picking on Riley Moss because he was getting mossed and he was getting beat the whole time. But but they showed the stats that before that he was playing really well before the injuries to this game. But he also a rookie coming right back, and basically it's like you ain't ready for this game scenario. So he's tired, all this stuff, and they just went after him because you got Patrick Surtain on the other side. But let's go to Bo Nix, where it's like I'm like Bo Nix did make some incredible passes. I'm not gonna act like he didn't. But also too, the tape with Bo Nix is also a lot of I was like where he like with the interception to Pratt. Yes, his arm got hit, but even if it didn't get hit, I don't believe that. I was like there was still three defenders around him when he was throwing at Sutton. I was like, I was like, but he did have another pass where I don't think it was Sutton, but I think it might have been Franklin or something like that, where he threw it, and I didn't know how he got that ball in there as well too. That pass to Mims, they gave that credit to Bo Nix I was like when they was doing the commentary, that was Mims, that was all Mims. It's not like I was like he was running away and he just launched it sideways. He basically gave his dude a chance for the ball. Mims came up with that ball out of all people, and I don't mean like out of all people, but I'm saying like compared to Cortland Sutton, that's like a 6'4" top like dude, like a big body dude or whatever like that. I'm like Mims is a shorter, faster dude, and he went up there and got it. But I was like, if that would have been an interception, think how badly you would have talked about it. That's what I like. I hate things that we talk about stuff where it's like if it would have went the other way, you would have immediately had the criticism. So I was like, you don't have to give the credit either to that same person, to that individual. Give the credit to Mims for making a balling ass play for that. Then we went into I was like overtime, and I swear if it wasn't back again, I was like, oh my god, the Bengals going to win. The Bengals going to lose. The Bengals are going to win. Oh, thank God they actually won. Jeez, I don't know if I keep on doing this or whatever. So the Bengals won. I was like, they don't get to control their destiny, but they at least get to live to fight another day. And that's all you can really ask for. Denver has to play against Kansas City, who probably is not going to play their starter. So we'll see how much of that game goes, because I can still see that Kansas City still plays pretty well enough, because I was like, they still got pretty decent weapons, even if it's not going to be Patrick Mahomes necessarily throwing the ball. And the Bengals basically need everybody to lose. I was like, pretty much, they need everybody to lose or whatever. The way you would think it sounded like they would be in no matter if the Colts or the Dolphins won their game. But I was like, but if they both got to lose, I'm like, man, they're gonna have. I was like, they got to go Sunday, and then they got to see how next week goes. But hey, I'm just saying, I think the defense has gotten better to where in the playoffs, I'm not wanting to play them because I was like, I think their defense will be decent enough, and Burrow's just gonna shoot out everybody. I wouldn't want to play them because at worst, you're in for a dogfight. Like it's not no dogfight like a pot, like like rough hard hitting type of stuff, but it's just fast paces. Like, can your offense keep up? And you probably can. Anyway, that was a long rant of me trying to talk about this whole game, but it was actually that damn good. Of this back and forth play or whatever. Burrow for MVP. That's how I'm going to end it. Bo Nix, he's alright. Calm it down with talking about him. That's all I'm saying. Some of y'all just be hyping dudes up. Well, I'm just like, everybody don't need to be hyped up like that. Anyway, how do y'all enjoy the game? Let me know. Until then, peace. We out. I swear.